need your help. I got myself in, but I don't know what I'm doing there.
I'm surprised you're not here speaking.
Can you hear me at all? On the microphone?
Put it up a little bit.
Yes.
Hello? Is that good? All right. Thank you guys all so much for coming. Oh my goodness, I cannot believe it. It's amazing. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you, Allison.
Yes. So obviously welcome, and I really appreciate everybody being here. It means so much. I know people traveled from really far places to be here today, and it's huge. I don't even know what to say. I'm really overwhelmed with the numbers. But we know why we're here. We all know why we're here. And just to start, basically, I'm sorry that we have to be here again, but I'm so glad to stand with you all against the Clean Heat Standard and the Global Warming Solutions Act that drives this destructive policy. It's very dangerous, and the more Vermonters hear about it, the more we understand this is not what we want for our state and for each other. And just to start, as Vermonters, we have core values and a culture of caring for each other, our communities, and our local businesses. We love our environment. We are dedicated to the stewardship of our natural resources. These are really important pieces for all of us. And what we know at this point is the Clean Heat Standard and the Global Warming Solutions Act are a gross deviation from these values. They attack and punish Vermonters, and they increase the costs for heating fuel and transportation fuel, both of which are necessary at this time in our cold rural state. This is not okay, and obviously this is why we're here right now. I am sorry that this is a partisan issue, but right now we are here because we are really asking our Democratic legislators to join hands with the Republicans and to do what is right for Vermont. We need to be... The more that we understand this policy, the more we understand how devastating it is for our economy and for each other, and it's not what we want to see happen. And I think everybody's well aware that the Public Utilities Commission just came out with a recent report where they specifically determined the Clean Heat Standard is not the right fit for Vermont, and it will harm low-income Vermonters. All of us will suffer. All of us will suffer with higher costs of all goods and services, further burdening each of us who are working hard to make ends meet, and this is not okay. And this is where we call on the Democrats to really do what is right. The Republicans have been here on the front line, stepping up and trying to take action, and right now we need them to join forces and do the only responsible thing, and that is to repeal the Clean Heat Standard and the Global Warming Solutions Act, which drives this vicious cycle of dangerous policy. And that is And I also just want to say, in addition to all of you who are able to take the time and be here today, we also have Senator Ingalls has something he was going to hand to me. Thank you. We have a Stop the Vermont Heat Fee petition, and right now we have over 5,000 signatures of people who want to repeal. Getting close to 6,000 of Vermonters who understand how destructive this is and that we need to repeal the Unaffordable Heat Act. So thank you. And at this point, I want to invite Rob Roper up to speak. Rob has been dedicated for a very long time writing to inform and educate Vermonters about what's going on in the State House, and we're very grateful to have him today. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Allison, and thank all of you for coming out. I mean, I am so overwhelmingly joyful at the turnout that we've got here today. I'm sorry that we've got some people spilled out in the hallway this way and some people spilled out in the hallway that way. We've got to also remember to keep a corridor because some people are coming through, and it's hard to do in the room as packed as this. But we've also got those 5,000 signatures, and I'm sure that people are calling the Sergeant-at-Arms who couldn't be here today in physical person, adding their voices to the chorus that we have right now. I think that the people have spoken on this idea that we should have a tax or a fee or a surcharge or whatever other euphemism you want to attach to a carbon tax on home heating fuels, which are, as Allison said, an essential commodity for life in a cold state like ours. We spoke in thousands of phone calls when Act 18 was being passed into law over the veto of our governor, Governor Scott, by the way. And the voters spoke loudly in the last election. But the supermajority, now just a plain old majority as a result, refused and still refuses to listen and repeal this disaster of a law. It's not just that it was a bad concept, deemed too costly, too complicated, ripe for fraud, and cruelly regressive. Act 18 was ineptly written. It was the fuel dealer registry, for example, was so ill-conceived and poorly designed that it requires any Vermonter who fills up their barbecue grill propane tank in another state, like New Hampshire, and brings it back to Vermont to grill their burgers and dogs in the backyard, to register with the state as a fossil fuel importer or face a potential $10,000 fine per violation. And that does not reflect the intent of the people who passed the law. It reflects their incompetence. This is a mess that needs to be cleaned up, not swept under the rug. Here's the fact of the matter. If, as the supporters of Act 18 say, the carbon credit market is not going to be implemented, and the fuel dealer registry, as established in the law, is unworkable and collecting irrelevant data, there is no reason not to repeal Act 18 and clean up the books, unless your real intent is to implement the unaffordable carbon tax in the future. If that's your intent, be honest with Vermonters and say so. In fact, here's my challenge to you, the Democrats who have passed this bill and want to perpetuate it. If you really believe that passing a tax on home heating fuel is a necessary policy to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, that doing so will in some measure help save the planet from climate change, and that the folks outside rallying in support of this bill actually represent a majority of the Vermonters and not us here as the majority, then do it. Grow a spine and implement the program. But if you don't really believe that, and don't really have any plans to move forward with this or any other program to achieve the goals under your Global Warming Solutions Act, repeal it. And repeal the Global Warming Solutions Act into the party. Because the worst act of poor governance you can engage in is passing these mandates. Do nothing of substance on a scale to meet those mandates while leaving Vermont taxpayers on the hook to be sued at significant expense because of your failure to come up with a realistic plan.
Yeah.
Repeal Act 18, repeal the Global Warming Solutions Act. Thank you, everybody, for your support in this mission. It's going to take us all.
Thank you, Rob, so much. And I just want to mention, I think we all are well aware of this, but we know these harmful policies are not helping the environment, they're not helping the climate, and they're absolutely not helping our infrastructure. So just to reiterate that too. And I just should mention, and I forgot to mention earlier, I apologize, traditionally we leave a path. If you guys can sort of just open up a path from this door to that door so people can get through. And I apologize, I didn't mention that earlier. Okay, so thank you, Rob, so much. And then I want to invite Judy Taranovich up. Judy is the sole owner of Procter Gas in Procter, Vermont. And ever since the Clean Heat Standard came under discussion, she has been advocating and working really hard to make sure other local fuel dealers, her customers, and all Vermonters are aware of the danger of this. So Judy, here you go, thanks.
I'm not sure about the wisdom of inviting somebody with a short memory, so I can't memorize the speech and poor eyesight to read it, but I'll do my best. First, I want to thank you all for coming and taking time out of your busy day today to spend time with us. And thank you to Rob and Allison for putting this event together and helping to keep us in the forefront. Gosh, I just went through the best part of my speech, too. I'd just like to, before I start, tag on to what Rob was talking about. And, of course, I had a front saying it, but I don't know what it is now. Oh, I've fallen. Those tanks. Over here. Okay. Yeah. So, if you go to West Lebanon, and you go to LL Bean, and you pick up one of these tanks because you're going camping this weekend, and you bring it back into the state of Vermont, you are now an obligated party to register with the state of Vermont as a fuel dealer. And if you do not, it's a $10,000 fine. Okay? So that's one of the crazy parts of this bill. All right. I know there's going to be people here today who dismiss our words and our actions. They will claim that opposition to the clean heat standard comes from big oil. Vermont, I'm here to tell you, nothing could be farther from the truth. My name is Judy Taranovich. I run a small propane company in Proctor, Vermont with 11 employees. I'm one of the 11. I'm the big oil they're talking about. We provide heat, hot water, and cooking gas to more than 2,700 Vermont families in the Rutland County area. I am one of 100 small energy providers in Vermont who stand against this law. I understand what the clean heat standard would do and the devastating impact it would have on small energy companies, their employees, their customers, and their communities that they support. Oops, sorry, lost my place. Sorry about that. It is Vermont's locally owned small retail fuel providers who opposed Act 18 and urged lawmakers to repeal it. And yet, the largest fossil fuel company in Vermont supported Act 18 and actively lobbied for it to become law. Let me just say that again. The largest fossil fuel company in Vermont wants this. The small companies like mine, who are concerned about their employees and their customers, want it repealed. Why? Because the clean heat standard, as outlined in the check-back report delivered to the legislature in January, is built on a complicated credit trading scheme. And in any complex regulatory system, the biggest corporations, the ones with teams of lawyers and accountants and deep pockets, always come out on top. Meanwhile, small businesses like mine, where the owners are answering phones, helping customers to get heat, and even hopping into truck and making deliveries, don't have the time or the resources to sit in a Public Utility Commission conference room negotiating clean heat credits alongside the state's largest utilities. We put our customers first. We urge lawmakers to do the same. Please repeal this bad, flawed law. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Judy. And then I also wanted to call up JT Dodge. JT Dodge is, he lives in Newbury, Vermont, and 8 years ago he began the grassroots organization No Carbon Tax Vermont, and ever since then he's been working hard to educate people about dangerous climate policy. JT?
Thank you, Allison.
I appreciate being invited here. I feel like I represent my group, which is a grassroots group that is maintains a position against carbon taxes, climate mandates, and complicated economic schemes related. So I appreciate the chance to get up here and just speak a couple of words. And so I just want to say that enough is enough. Might be enough. It's been going on for a while. A lot of people don't realize how long this has been going on, but now that they're starting to pass these laws, people are starting to pay a lot more attention to them because they can see how hurtful they are. I was born in the Northeast Kingdom, and my family now lives over in Newbury, And like many of you, I know what it means to work hard and stretch a dollar. I know what it means to have to watch like your electricity and make sure you got the lights off and those sorts of things. Just like you, and everybody in the group is you, basically. Time and time again, they raise taxes and pass mandates that are impossible to meet. And now, they want to drive up the cost, well, they've driven, and they're driving up the cost of heating our homes. In a state where winter isn't just a season, it's our lives half the time. And it always has been. Anybody that's up here for any period of time, you need to kind of embrace it. You know it exists. You'll know pretty quick. I've attended their meetings. I've listened to them say in their own words that Vermont cannot change climate. And they're right. They're right about that. Changing climate isn't something that humans have been able to do intentionally. It's not something that, point at somebody that's got a good plan for that one, I'm afraid. Yet somehow leadership believes Vermont will be the exception. They're willing to make life harder for working families in pursuit of essentially what is a fantasy, a feel-good fantasy. And I know that that probably ticks a lot of people off hearing that, but we need to contemplate this. It's not actually possible what they say they're trying to do. And it's going to hurt us. It's hurting us now. I've seen the chair of the House Energy Committee block critical discussions, shutting down the voices of Vermonters, many of the legislators behind me. They just won't even take up the conversations. And it's far past that time. I believe the governor's vetoed a couple of times now and been overridden a couple of times. Last I checked, we have a pretty respected governor across the country. People recognize that he does some good work, and he's a balanced, for the most part, he's a balanced guy. Maybe we need to lean into his leadership a little bit on that. Maybe a lot. We stand here today to support the brave legislators fighting for us. Some of them are behind me. Pushing these bills. We need to repeal Act 18, essentially. That's why I'm standing here. And we should be repealing, in my opinion, we should be repealing all of these laws that mandate carbon reductions and mandate Vermonters to pay a lot more. We actually emit the least amount of climate gases, greenhouse gases, than any other state. So we're in a very small percentage of the harm that they would say that we do. I just believe that the time for waiting is over. But lastly, I just want to make one last note. And this is a message to, I'm not going to call people out by party. I'm just going to say that if you're in a party or you're in a circle of people where you're a legislator and you're representing the people and you're not feeling like you're being heard from your leadership is not listening to you, you may feel differently. Maybe you feel like us, you feel like these laws aren't realistic. They're not realistic at all. We're passing the deadlines and there's no changes. I would just remind you that there's a lot of responsibility in your hands, and that sometimes bravery is what it takes to step out in a way. And sometimes I'm not asking you to switch parties or anything. I'm just saying speak up, speak out, speak your mind, speak your heart, speak your conscience, speak on behalf of the people. Thank you.
Thank you, JT, so much. And at this point, I want to have us give a round of applause to all of the Republican legislators. I will call out the party myself. The Republican legislators have been in here standing on the front line, trying so hard to take action, and I just want us to give them a round of applause for all their hard work. Want to add to that list Independent Representative Jed Lipsky and also Democrat Representative Christy Morse, both who signed on with Republican Representative Jim Harrison on H52 to amend the Global Warming Solutions Act, which would make a big difference. And at this time, I wanted to ask Representative Mark Higley if he could come up and speak with us. He's been in here for a long time, trying hard for a long time. For years, he has had a bill to repeal the Global Warming Solutions Act because he has had the insight and the understanding to see the danger of this bill from early on. So welcome, Representative Higley.
Thank you, Allison, and thank you for all being here. Again, a little bit about myself. I represent a lot of towns in the Northeast Kingdom, eight of them as a matter of fact, so that gives you a little background there. I have been at it a long time. I was on the Energy and Technology Committee when we passed the Global Warming Solutions Act. There was 2 of us that voted no on that, and then of course, as you've heard, the governor vetoed it. I've got a bill out there this year, which is H62, again, a repeal of the Total Global Warming Solutions Act, and H65, which is a repeal of the following California's Clean Car Standards. That's also in the Global Warming Solutions Act, so the ANR, through rules, made the move to follow California's Clean Car Standards. I'll get to that in a minute. Again, being on that committee, when we passed the Global Warming Solutions Act, we heard from a lot of people, and one of them was from the state of Massachusetts, where the Conservation Law Foundation had sued the state over their Global Warming Solutions Act. They did not have the provision in their Global Warming Solutions Act that we do, the right to sue provision, which also includes that if you win, you will get attorney's fees and any reasonable cost. That to me is unreasonable for my rural constituents, to say the least. Locking ourselves also into the mandates in the Global Warming Solutions Act and not the goals and the unrealistic timelines, with no consideration for events such as pandemic, war, rescission, change of administration in the federal level, all these things. I can't imagine if you're thinking of your family and you wanted to have a goal, or you don't go into it with a timeline or a benchmark that regardless of anything else that happens in your life or outside of your life, you're going to achieve that, when that's not realistic. And that's what we're up against. A lot of people say, well, what are you going to do? Well, we can fall back on the Comprehensive Energy Plan that's been in place since 1998, with an update that just happened in 2022. The Conservation Energy Plan covers all energy sectors: electric, thermal, transportation, and it sets new goals for each sector. Others say, Mark, what are we going to do to help combat climate change and that sort of. There's so much out there, folks, and this is just some pieces of it. Incentives. We had Efficiency Vermont here just yesterday. There's incentives for purchasing heat pumps and hot water heat pumps, some of them are pretty huge for people that qualify income-wise. I know the electric companies are always looking for the larger sugar makers to get electricity to them so they don't burn as much fuel oil now, because they run RO machines. That's a huge endeavor. The residential building energy standards and commercial energy building standards, which were just passed, updated in July of 2024. I sit on LCAR 2. We heard testimony from a home builder that said that those new rules alone on the residential building energy standards would increase the cost of an 1,800 square foot home $30,300. So again, we aren't doing nothing. I mean, this is just a few of the things that we are doing. We also have the Climate Action Office. They encourage broad citizen participation. We gave them another $1.1 million for 2 more employees to help out with the Climate Council. Here's some information from the 2024 annual report that we get from the Climate Council. Quote, the current plan and suite of actions does not add up to achieving the requirements of the Global Warming Solutions Act. Here's the report from 2025. Quote, all modeling and analysis done to date by or for ANR has found that Vermont is not on track to meet our January 1st, 2030 emissions reductions obligations without additional policy and regulatory action. That's what scares me. Are they going to double down now? And if so, my constituency is going to pay the price. One of those plans that they're already considering is an all fuels cap and trade investment. And that's an alternative to the clean heat standard. So that's why I think it's so important that even if we get rid of the clean heat standard, There's something else right behind it. I'll go on to A&R's rulemaking on that following California's clean standards, car standards. Unrealistic. I went around to my town, 8 town meetings, and talked a little bit about this provision where by 2035, following California standards, there will be no new internal combustion engine vehicles sold in the state of Vermont. And even if you purchase outside of the state, you will not be allowed to register in the state of Vermont. The other, see, people are, saying what, when, and that's what I hear in my constituency too. They don't believe it. This is facts, folks. And again, there's even standards now for as early as 2026 model years in your dealership slots, they have to have 35% of their vehicles EV on the lot. It's not happening. I talked to a dealer down the southern part of the state. They currently have around 12%, and it's even hard for them to get from the manufacturers 5 to 7% of these vehicles a year. And as you know, with what's going on in the federal level, that's even going to be harder, and especially in regards to some of the cancellation of charging station money from the feds that's coming through. Again, from the Climate Council's report, they talked about all the bills that are tied to the Climate Action Plan, the Flood Safety Act, the Climate Response Act, the Making Big Oil Pay, Renewable Energy Standard, Act 250 Reform and Housing, Transportation Bill, the PUC's including tweaks to the Clean Heat Standard. And again, in addition to all that, $524 million, $403,768 in 2025 were budgeted for direct climate action. Much of it was federal money, but again, how is that going to stand up here in the future? And folks, I guess really, I read this at committee. I was able to get 5-7 minutes for these bills in committee. In the Energy Committee currently, I'm sure it isn't going to go anywhere, but with your help, we can maybe have it happen. I read this too. This is from June Tierney. She was the Commissioner of Public Service. Her remarks to the Climate Council when she left. And I'm reading this because it's what I believe, and what I believe most of my constituents also believe in listening to them. She says that, with all due respect, as someone who has lost her home in Irene, I think the emphasis on this council is completely misdirected. We need to be thinking about how we use our resources, and we should be directing those at resiliency, in my opinion, and also, frankly, in recovery. Because we can think large thoughts about emissions reductions, our emissions at the end of the day, and our reductions of them may be morally just and therefore compelling, but it is a compulsion to focus on them when the immediate needs of keeping people safe, directly knowing that we've got storms coming, are being sidelined and neglected in order to pursue those measures. And by that I mean every cent that goes into policies that are directed towards reductions, when we need to be directed every cent towards hardening our systems and helping people to survive here. I would urge this council to rethink where it's putting its intellectual capital. I cannot emphasize how wrong I think what it is we are doing. Those are my parting words to the council. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Representative Higley, and I'm so glad you were able to read that quote. It's a really important one, and a lot of us out here were hoping that that could be read to understand the problem with not only the Climate Council direction, but at the heart of the problem with the Global Warming Solutions Act being just focused on emissions versus really making an impact and helping us here. And now I want to ask Senator Williams, if Senator Terry Williams could come up. Senator Williams is currently the Vice Chair on the Senate Natural Resource and Energy Committee. He has Senate Bill number 68, which would repeal the Unaffordable Heat Act. And we're very happy that he's here to talk with us. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here, because we're nothing without you. I started this odyssey about 6 years ago. I actually ran 3 times before I got elected. And then I came up here in 2022, and I had a mission. I had 2 things that were really stuck in my craw, and I didn't know how to deal with it. When I got up here and started looking around, I realized that we had a lot more problems than just those two things. Okay, so this is one of them. I wanted to, and nobody to blame but ourselves. I'm going to get into that a little bit. So, Act 68 is a bill that I put in. It basically says repeal the Global Warming Solution Act, or the Affordable Heat Act, Act 18. I also put in S-110, which got the first reading on the Senate floor yesterday morning. And that is going to, if it moves, because you know, we got crossover coming up on Friday, that's going to do away with the private right of action, where anybody can sue the state of Vermont for not meeting their mandates, the global warming solution mandates. And I've also taken away the amending the who's on the climate council. We're going to actually put that back into the Agency of Natural Resources. The governor's going to have a lot of say in that. So we're going to change the mandate from the mandates to goals, which is going to make things a lot easier. We need to sit back and take a look at what we're doing, because we pass bills that are not ready for prime time in this body. And we've seen the enemy, and he is us, actually. I'm going to get into this a little bit. We didn't have, in my committee, the Natural Resources and Energy Committee in the Senate, for 2 bienniums, we didn't have anybody on that committee that was a conservative. And basically, we're dealing right now with the results of sitting back and going into this mission blind. Right? So I went to the minority leader last year and said, I want to be on that committee next year. And he said to me, nobody wants to be on that committee. And I said, I do. So fortunately, we've got 2 very conservative individuals from the Republican Party in there. One of them is Senator Scott Beck, who is our Republican minority leader. So we have the backing of the people as evidenced here today. And I want to make an analogy here. Anybody see the movie 300? Yes. Okay. 300 is where the nation-state of Sparta fought and held off the Persian, basically the Persian army. And it didn't end well for the Spartans. And the Spartans actually sent out runners to the other nation states trying to get support to help, to no avail. So every day they gird their loins and go into battle and get ready, hoping somebody was going to come. Look behind me. These are the Spartans. Last plan, we had 36 representatives in the House, and we had 7 Democrats. Senators. And we held our own. All right, but defense, anybody knows anything about military operations, knows that you can't win a battle, you can't win a war fighting defense. So this year, we have 56 representatives on the Republican Party, and we have 13 senators. And because our message has been getting out to the people about what the problems are up here, and people are starting to listen. Not only are they listening, but they're tuning into YouTube and listening to all the conservative network newscasts that we have and saying, holy mackerel, that can't be true. Well, it is. So basically, I'm going to end this real quick, and I'm going to say that I'm here to bring you hope. And I think that because of what's going on in my committee right now with S68, that we can compromise to the point where everybody can be happy with it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator Williams. And at this point, I just want to thank everybody again for coming out. Obviously, there's a lot of work that is happening. The Republicans are trying hard. I encourage you to please reach out to your legislators, and let's try to have the Democrats come in and join hands, like I was saying, so we can repeal the Clean Heat Standard, repeal the Global Warming Solutions Act, and get us back on a good track for Vermont. So thank you all so much for coming. And I just wanted to open it up in case anybody had questions from the press for anybody up here at all.
I have one question.
Okay.
Judy, you mentioned the largest fossil fuel company in the state. I'm just curious to know who that is.
Green Mountain Power.
Green Mountain Power.
Run by gas metro out of Canada. Our natural gas.
Judy, come up here.
Yeah. And we just gotta be like, here,
Say it all over.
I'll have a discussion with you later.
Yeah, if anybody didn't hear, it's Green Mountain Power is the largest fossil fuel company. They own the gas system, natural gas system. They own all the electric, which a lot of it comes from fossil fuels. And they're owned by Gas Metro out of Canada. And I will tell you, one of my arguments has always been for anybody that has a 401k or retirement plan, whatever. You don't put all your investments into one stock. You diversify. And I believe that's the safest thing for us to do in Vermont, is to have diversification for our energy security. We all know what's going on right now with, the possibility of a switch being flipped for our electric. That wouldn't be good. So.
And just to follow up on that, I wanted to say that I think since early on, a lot of people have noticed that this would definitely create monopolies, because it really is crushing these local fuel dealers that are so integral in our communities. We know they come out and they fill our tank up so we have warmth. They contribute to our communities. They do so much, and we want to support our local businesses, and thanks to them for doing it. You had a question?
Yeah, Steve Nichols in Manchester. Not really a question. Thank you all. It comes from the taxpayer, okay? The problem we are running up against in Bennington County is the representatives and senators don't listen to the taxpayer. That's the problem. And they need to start today. And they need to come in as a bipartisan issue.
Some of them don't.
Right.
Some of them.
Good point, exactly.
Can I just add something, that Mary and I are the only two Republicans in Bennington County? Yes. I represent Bennington Rutland, and Mary represents Bennington Rutland.
And thank you.
It is a good point, and that's why we're here and working on it, to try to make sure our voices keep being heard, because this is obviously affecting all of us, and we want to make sure things are done right. So thank you.
We need to speak.
Yes, we do. Thank you.
If you go up the ladder, how does Exxon or Standard Oil, do they end up being in that chain?
One of the 100 small.
He's got an answer.
No, I don't know the answer to that. No, I'm good.
I would just say in response to that, as Judy said earlier, anytime you have this sort of really heavily regulated industry, you're going to run into some trouble with the local fuel dealers, and that's what we don't want to hurt, because those are the ones that are committed to really helping us. And this carbon credit scheme, this fraudulent carbon credit scheme, which is part of it, I think all of us know that there are big global corporations who are already the winners, and we're going to be the losers, paying more for it, and in the meantime doing nothing to help our environment, our climate, or our infrastructure. I'm seeing that part of it.
I hope some of our Democrat legislators start to understand that many of these technologies generate a lot of non-carbon pollution, as in PFAS, forever chemicals, ecotoxins that cause cancer. They're endocrine disruptors. And in this race to develop these things, they're actually polluting far more than carbon dioxide ever does. So I hope you will remind them and ask them to be accountable for that pollution, and not solely focus on carbon dioxide at the expense of our waters and our human health. Because that's what renewable energy is doing, and they're making the poorest of us pay for it through higher rates.
And that's exactly also why we're here, so we can demand that real conversation. We need to look at all of those pieces. We need to look at biofuels, et cetera. Looks like there's another question.
It's a statement I want to make, and then anyone who can't really holler to the back of the room, maybe they could have a mic. I just want to say this is not a partisan issue. I am fully nonpartisan, issue-oriented, and I keep coming out, and I have been speaking with my rep and my senators for as long as this has been going on, and I feel like they are listening. So let's change the narrative a little bit and reach out and make global climate change issues nonpartisan, all working together. And I also, before I stop, want to echo the person who spoke before me. It is so important to understand all of the dynamics of whatever choices we make, not just focus on the narrow technological fix. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you. And I would also just say to that, if you are in conversation with your Democratic legislators, please have them reach out and connect with the Republicans so it can happen. Because right now, the Republicans are the ones here making the change or trying to make the change, and we do need them to join forces and do this for the sake of Vermont. Parties aside, we just have to get the path right. Yep. Anybody else? Oh, Susan.
Susan Seymour from Fairfield. I'm just curious, besides talking to our legislators, what else can we do? Because, you know, do we need to make fight videos?
Don't do that.
Totally true.
I think we have to just keep an eye and stay tuned in, and we have to see how we're going to vote next time around. If people aren't responding to us, if our legislators aren't hearing us and doing what is right, then we need to vote them out, and we need to vote, you know, people in who are going to really respond to the constituency. So then we'll be back at it. And donate money.
Donate money.
Yep. I'd also encourage people to share news with your neighbors and your church families and your Rotary clubs and wherever else you go, that they need to be informed too. More voices will make a difference too.
Yes, I think Senator Williams has something to add.
So one of the reasons we've been effective as the 300 Spartans is because it's not about partisanship. It can't be. And we actively seek out like-minded people and bring up the issues that we can all agree on. Because we couldn't have survived if we hadn't done that. So what can you do? Get on vt.gov and go to government, to the legislature. Every bill that gets voted on, you can find it on that website under committees. And you can find out how your representative and senator voted. And if they didn't vote the way that you asked them to vote, shame on them. And that's what I'm talking about with the people, to actually stand up and start speaking, pay attention to the issues, pay attention to the outcome of the votes, and then hold your elected official accountable. Because they're in the school boards, they're in the select boards, they're on the planning commissions. It's not just in Montpelier, it's all the way from the grassroots up to Montpelier. So.
And it really is a team effort, so it's just, again, amazing to see everybody who came out to support this and to get us all on the same page so we can try to take action and make it happen. So thank you all again so much for being here. Thank you. And thank you, everybody.